welcome to the Aliens and Cowboys podcast. I'm Nate, your favorite host, and with me we've got
Garrett
and Joe.
And we're about to get started on villains, kind of in a subset of what we previously did, with some of our favorite ones from the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I feel like you're yelling into the mic.
Yeah, my volume level is probably very loud.
You're having trouble controlling the volume of your voice.
Tone it down a bit.
It's okay. So
I'm excited.
Yeah, that's good.
Exactly.
So everybody, welcome. Like Nate said, we're going to tackle the Marvel Cinematic Universe in relation to the villains that exist in this universe, and kind of break them down and kind of discuss their nuances. Before we do that, Joe, you had some pop culture you wanted to talk about?
I did, yeah. A fun thing that I read about was, if any of you enjoy fencing out there, it was actually the French Fencing Federation officially recognized lightsaber dueling as a competitive sport. I'm excited. Maybe I'm going to move to France now.
Everybody likes the FFF.
Yeah.
So lightsaber dueling.
Lightsaber dueling, yeah.
It's about 25 years too late, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm surprised it wasn't recognized somewhere before now, but it's official as a competitive sport, which I imagine will only grow from there, I think, if it catches on in popularity.
Have you seen a video of this?
I have not really seen a video of it, but I saw some pictures of them actually engaged in these bouts, if you will. And it's pretty cool for the rules that they build around this, too.
I think we should put that up on the Facebook page.
I agree. I'll try and find something on it.
Which, if we didn't mention, we do have a Facebook page now, so take that time to go out.
Facebook official.
Yeah, put this on pause, and go out and like that right now, and then share it with everybody you know, including your mom.
Exactly.
I'm curious, what are the differences between fencing and lightsaber duels?
Yeah, there's actually quite a few differences between. Well, in terms of the rules for how they're going to structure this, for how they're actually going to, conclude that you actually did in fact score a point in lightsaber dueling versus fencing. I did a grand total of maybe 1 or 2 fencing sessions. I won't even say I fenced in college because that would be a lie. Well, I did. Yeah, I went to like 1 or 2 club meetings. It was super fun. But just didn't end up really sticking with it.
Did you get dressed up?
I did, yeah. Got dressed up in the mask.
The whole 9 yards?
Did you have to buy that, or did they provide it?
Nah, they were kind enough to provide it. But that was actually at Iowa State there for their fencing club. And
Go Cyclones.
That's right.
Go Cyclones. I can only imagine that smelled a whole lot like BO. If you're borrowing that.
Yes, it does.
It's like football pads.
It's kind of that's
how it
exactly.
goes.
It's kind of along those same lines. But anyway, long story short, there's different rules to fencing in terms of if you're fencing with epee or with saber. There's different rules that follow. With saber, it's more of points for slashing, if memory serves me correctly. That's kind of what this lightsaber dueling rules will follow as well. So you can only score points if the tip of the lightsaber started pointing behind you when you strike your opponent. So it forces you to actually strike and slash rather than jab in order to score actual points against your opponent. And then you lightsaber duel in a circle as opposed to on an actual lane, which is also pretty cool. So they dim the lights when they do this too, so the lightsabers actually light up and you can spin around. It looks super cool. I'd try it if there's a league in town.
Do you have to choose Sith versus Jedi when you...
Right? No, you can do whatever
when you're
color.
a Sith, you have to wear a helmet for the most part?
Question, do you have a picture of yourself dressed in this outfit? From college?
No, I don't think I do. There's a couple pictures out there of me attending one of the fencing club's tournaments, because one of my good friends still fences to this day. So
nice.
There's a couple pictures of me attending one of those to support him.
Okay.
But I don't think there's any photo evidence of me dressed in the gear.
Well, let's try to find a photo of the lightsaber dueling. Let's try to put that up on the Facebook.
I think there was an article on ESPN. I'll try and just post that up there so you guys can all view that.
Okay, before we get started, one thing we wanted to bring up to you guys. We tried, the three of us, our first ever Dungeons and Dragons tabletop game. And I think they called it a tabletop game, right?
No.
I mean,
or nothing
RPG.
on the table.
It's your imagination, Nate.
I didn't see anything on the table.
The miniatures.
No, we did not use. We did not use the figurines, but we did.
The theory of the mind, isn't that the term?
Yeah,
theory of the mind.
There you
go.
Yeah, the creativity. We tried our first ever Dungeons and Dragons game, and I would say it was different. I think it was successful.
I think it was successful for not having any clue what I was doing.
Yeah.
So,
Joe was great at the voices. Joe, do you remember your characters' names?
yeah, I do. Tazric Glavin is he's a folk hero, soldier. Pretty great. And then Drumple Baneswing is my Dwarven Cleric. We were actually playing a couple characters at once. Garrett got the starter box so we could figure out exactly what the heck we were doing with this game. So we named our own characters that came in the starter box. You remember your names, Nate? Who are your guys?
Guilfred is the only one that comes to mind. And he was a noble knight who could not do anything right.
Oh, so
we're
funny.
talking massive fails on every role that I played.
Oh, Willem.
Yes,
That's your
Willem.
yeah.
It was Guilford von Lute
Yep.
and Willem H. Longfellow III.
Yes. And very...
Your names were far
Very
superior to
elaborate
mine.
names. My nerd street cred went through the roof this last week. But honestly, it as nerdy as it sounds, it opened up like a whole different skill set that I have never been accustomed to as far as improvisation and learning on the fly and trying to come up with things. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was
I would do
awesome.
it again.
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to try to do it. I don't think we're going to record anything or put that up unless it became something bigger. So if you were interested in how we D&D, just keep imagining that because we're probably not going to put that up yet. But until then, let's get started here. So we're going to tackle the villains of the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We are not going to jump into comics, right? We acknowledge that. This is going to be specifically
Correct.
movies.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole if you start getting into the comic variations of it.
I have one relationship that I might bring up.
Perfect.
That's
Oh,
fine.
that's fine.
And a later
We'll
point,
just
but-
credit it to the comic.
Yeah, we'll stay predominantly to
right.
movies. Yeah.
What we're going to start with is the very ever popular Loki.
Loki.
So for Loki, my question to you on Loki first, gentlemen, is why are they a villain? Why is Loki considered a villain?
Overall, I think Loki's goals, obviously setting him directly against his brother Thor, leads to the conflict there. Loki's a good one to start with, though, because his trajectory leads him to be more of an anti-hero, and then eventually kind of heroic, really, in Infinity War.
Yeah.
By the time, well, we think he's dead. Who knows? I know he's got his own show coming out, right? I think on Disney Plus.
Right. I think he's got something coming out.
He's got something coming out there. But yeah, long story short, obviously there's the backstory to him as well in regard to some contention between Thor and Loki. There's the whole concept of heir to the throne. Loki wants the throne and is willing to be very devious about how he goes about getting the throne as well.
Okay.
No
Nate?
skipping over plot
I
points,
don't
but-
think... I think if he had won, it's one of those situations to where he could have rewrote history to where he is the hero. That he did things right. But,
Yeah.
you know, I don't get the sense that anything is wrong with... It's not Valhalla, but what is the realm that they live on?
Oh, Asgard?
Asgard. That people don't really need a change. That things are fine just the way they are, and they can continue that way. So to make a change like that, I mean, everyone's in good prosperity for the most part. So, to overthrow the throne at that point, I don't know that it's necessary.
Yeah, I think Loki's operating perhaps from a much more selfish perspective than some of the other villains that we'll get to. Because I think some of the other villains we'll get to are choosing to make hard decisions that they believe in that will achieve a positive outcome in their mind. Just to clarify, in their mind, what they believe to be either necessary or even positive as the outcome. Whereas Loki, he seems to be kind of in it for himself. He's not really going after the betterment of his people, I wouldn't say. He's not going after the benefit of other worlds. He wants to be the guy in charge.
What if he's just simply looking at like he wants to be just seen as an equal to Thor?
I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, they're brothers, right? Correct. I don't know the full backstory if they're like half brothers or whatnot. I think they're full-blooded brothers. Correct.
There's a whole backstory with Loki's raising, and
Okay.
gosh, you guys will have to refresh my memories. The
Frost Giants.
The Frost Giants.
It's half Frost Giants.
Yeah, it's half
Okay.
Frost
Okay.
Giants.
So they're
Thank you, Nate.
they're related to some degree. I think that they grew up together.
They did grow up together,
I
yeah.
think he just wants to see himself as an equal to Thor and wants people to see himself as an equal to Thor. And the idea of Thor being the ruler of Asgard, I don't think so much bothers Loki at the thought of him not being on equal footing with Thor bothers Loki.
Yes, and I think there's the whole dynamic where Odin favors Thor. So, to your point, Garrett, yes, absolutely. I think he feels like he's playing second fiddle to Thor in a lot of ways, and it,
Sure.
kind of eats away at him.
If I look at it like from a Game of Thrones standpoint, there's no king that's an equal to another king for the most part, right? And there's no equal in that situation. You have to prove yourself better than another. And I think that's kind of what Loki's trying to do. It's just so that he is better.
Okay. What does he accomplish then throughout his pursuits? And he's kind of the villain in a couple different of these Marvel movies, right?
He does.
He's definitely a villain in Thor to some degree, and he's definitely a villain in the first Avengers.
Yeah, in the first Avengers, definitely. At the end of, I believe it's the Dark World, where they team up. Loki and Thor team up.
Yep.
Only to find out, of course, that Loki
Has killed his father.
Yes, and tricked Thor into thinking he died as well. Which, I do love that scene at the beginning of Thor Ragnarok, when they have one of the other Hemsworths. It's Chris Hemsworth's brother who's playing Thor in the play.
Oh,
do you remember that scene?
Yep.
And then
No, that's Matt Damon.
Oh, it was
Matt Damon's playing Loki, right?
No.
In the play, isn't Matt Damon Loki? And I'm trying to remember.
Confusing who's who.
I'm botching this right now. Sorry, guys.
I've seen that about once.
Matt Damon's in it.
But Matt, it's great. I love that scene. That cracked me up the first time I saw it.
Okay.
But
okay. We'll have to go back and check out the play.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's really good.
How about what are the key mistakes that Loki makes?
hubris,
Okay.
I would say. He's very confident at the end, I would say, of the Dark World in what he's pulled off.
Okay.
He thinks he pulled off the ultimate switch. Now he's in charge of Asgard, pretending to be Odin.
Yep.
And then Thor storms in at the beginning of Ragnarok and clearly puts him in his place.
Yeah.
So I think... Oh, go ahead, Nate. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, one of the problems with that is it's not Loki that's receiving that power. That power is given to Odin, who he is imitating.
That's true.
In that sense. So he doesn't really earn
pretty
it
good
in that
point.
sense, maybe.
He doesn't, does he?
But he has it, and maybe that's like a misconstrued like sense of power within himself.
So that begs a good question as well. Is it more important for Loki that he, as Loki, has power? Or is he so power hungry that he doesn't care how he obtains it? He's posing as Odin, and he seems to be happy with the fact that he's perceived as Odin, but he still has power.
I'll take the Loki wants power for Loki, not to just have power. Because it's the same reason why he would side with the villains during Avengers.
Okay.
Right? Because he's not hiding his identity there, that he's going against his brother and the rest of the team.
Very true.
He's out there to have that power. Whether he's going to end up with the power at the end through Thanos, nobody really knows. It's not out of the realm of possibility to think that he's disguised as Odin, and as soon as he could, he would kill Thor and just reveal himself as Loki and live life that way. So I think he wants power as Loki, so he doesn't have to hide his identity.
Okay.
And I think he's just disguising himself to get the power temporarily before he can unmask.
Cool.
I agree with that point. I think that being the trickster god that he is, he doesn't care how he gets to the end point, but he wants the power in the end. So if he's able to trick people into thinking that he is Odin and gain advantage over his opponents, that he's going to do that and take power any way possible. And at the end, then he will reveal that he is Loki.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. I like it. I think, too, as we're talking, I am reminded of the awful things he does to try and gain power, and really how forgiving Thor seems to be of him throughout this entire process, too. I mean, with everything that Loki's done, doesn't he... he kills... Oh, my gosh. Coulson, right? Phil Coulson?
Yep.
Isn't that Loki who kills Coulson in Avengers?
Yep.
So, he does that. His father, obviously... impersonates his father to assume power, tries to kill Thor on multiple occasions.
He brings an entire destruction to the city.
He does that.
I mean, how many innocents are killed in that one battle?
And yet, he's kind of played up as an anti-hero by the time we get to Infinity War. That's a pretty big swing in the other direction.
It's kind of one of those things, it's interesting because we can always debate with these villains, at what point are they redeemable?
Yeah.
And it seems to be to the rest of the Avengers that Loki is redeemable, or at least because of Thor, Loki is redeemable.
Yeah.
And I think that they understand that Thor is one of the more powerful of the Avengers, and they probably need him. Therefore, they probably can't kill Loki without Thor's blessing. I think that I think that Loki is only alive because of Thor.
Very true.
Up to Avengers Infinity War, right? Which we don't know. But up till that point, he survived at the goodwill of Thor.
Yeah.
Does Loki have a point? What is Loki's point?
I think Loki's a little less sympathetic in a way than some of these other characters because he is so power hungry. I'm not sure I see Loki's point for Loki.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I see Loki's point from anyone else's.
That's fine. I mean, Loki's arguably the story of the little brother who's going to get left out of the inheritance basically because he's not born first, essentially. Right? Or he's not the full child of whoever. It's not his fault. He was raised by ice giants and taken by Odin and later on and raised. He's just basically trying to probably to his birthright thinks that he should be a king of something, and now he's playing, the prince.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is how worthy are you, right? No matter what your past or anything like that, what are you capable of doing? Again, maybe more or less for your people that the previous predecessor wasn't capable of doing. And it's not just by blood. Just because you have a child, that doesn't mean that they're a good leader as well.
Correct.
You have to prove yourself to do that.
Yep, that's right.
I think he's trying to challenge that and make sure that, that's a good thing. Competition is a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, single-handedly, him and obviously an army are able to almost destroy the city and take down the Avengers himself, without somebody as powerful as like Thanos or the Ma later on throughout the series.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up too, Nate, because that does remind me of the first Thor movie, which I've only seen a handful of times. I've seen it a couple times, and it's been a while. But Thor kind of acts like the spoiled older child who thinks he's entitled to everything. Correct. And so I'm glad you reminded me of that, because yes, Loki really is there, I think, to kind of put him in his place a little bit. Realize that he can't just act like the spoiled, entitled brat and expect to receive everything. So, because Thor has some definite character progression as a result of how Loki behaves and Loki's challenge of him, essentially, I think. So,
right.
I'm glad you reminded me of that. Yeah.
Okay.
Good points.
All right. Let's see here. See if we have anything else for Loki. Okay, let me just ask this. We talked about his character arcing swing, right? Going from essentially not villain to not villain. He's probably the most neutral of the characters we're going to discuss tonight.
Yeah.
Do you see Loki as a villain? Like, to you, is Loki considered a villain?
At this point, he's not. Okay. Not to me. He started. Yes, I would have said if his character progression stopped prior to, let's say, Ragnarok into Infinity War, yeah, I'd say he's a villain. But they've done a good job, I think, changing his trajectory and actually giving him some redeeming qualities. So at this point in his story, I'd say he goes out actually pretty heroically.
Yeah, especially in the latest with Thanos, on how he sacrifices himself into trickery, into trying to essentially kill Thanos with a dagger or whatever it was that he manifests. But
yeah,
and in the end, he gets killed. Whether that's definite or not, we don't know yet.
Okay.
But he's very much on an upward swing from where he started.
Okay. Do we think that's just because his character's played by Tom and people find him attractive?
That could be something to do with it. There's something to be said for the charm and the presence that he's got. Right. And this could all be to the point where we don't know for sure if he's dead or not. Is this just the next big play he's making?
There's rumor out there
that
he's behind a lot of this.
There's the possibility there.
There's so much in the MCU. I think they do such a fantastic job about adapting and evolving the reception of what the previous films were, and then like changing the next storyline, and just receiving that feedback and taking it into consideration for the next movie in line.
Yeah.
So I'd be very interested to see. I can't imagine that he's gone.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no way.
No. Yeah. Well, they're not gonna kill off this character. He'll be back.
Especially now with his TV show and everything they've got. So.
Okay, moving to a lesser-known villain by name. You would probably recognize him from the movie. Baron Zemo.
Yeah.
Nate, tell us who Baron Zemo is.
So, Baron Zemo is your plain Jane civilian, for the most part. I think he is a civilian of Sokovia
Yes.
at the time. And his family is killed in the altercation between Ultron and the Avengers, by no fault of his own. But what he does is he blames the Avengers, who take no responsibility for the actions that are taken there. And, all to his power, he is a human.
Right.
And he turns the world's most powerful heroes, mightiest heroes, against one another. As I don't know if he's really considered a superhuman genius or anything like that, but he does it out of pure determination for revenge.
He's the villain from Captain America's Civil War. So if you're following along with that, he is the military guru scientist who is essentially mind controlling Winter Soldier.
Yep.
And kind of sets them on the path to have Captain America and Iron Man fight each other.
He understands this broader plot to where he knows where his place is in the world. He's a human being. He has no superpowers. Yet he knows the means to an end is to convince them to kill themselves. And he sets the plot course for that scenario. Yeah,
what's really interesting about him, too, is he's the only guy on this list that doesn't have an army.
Doesn't have superpowers or anything.
No,
I don't know how many push-ups this guy could do. In a
more than us. Doesn't have an army. I take that back. It's not that he doesn't have an army. He does have Winter Soldier, right?
Which is kind of a one-man army.
Which is, he's a wrecking crew in his own. But you would think that the Avengers, with enough determination, clearly, if that was in their mind, they would be able to stop Bucky Barnes here.
Yeah.
So this is a guy that his goal is essentially revenge. But it's not just revenge because he wants to just kill them. He wants to tear them apart. And he wants them to tear each other apart. So his goal, essentially, I would say, is revenge for the death of his family. But essentially, not revenge just to kill these heroes. It's revenge to tear down what the Avengers stands for. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is you think he's a terrible villain, right? But if you think past the events of Sokovia, Ultron was created by the Avengers.
Yep.
That event was caused by the Avengers creating Ultron and then being the Avengers to then, neutralize him. But in the process, there's all this collateral damage, and he and his family are a part of that. So you can kind of level with him in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's important to note for actually a few of the villains we'll be talking about. I don't want to skip ahead necessarily to a couple of the others we have on our list, but it really does go back to Sokovia and the events that happened there, and not even just Sokovia, but the attack as well that Loki leads, and the sheer amount of damage not only caused by who we consider to be villains, but by the heroes as well. So I think it is important that they introduce these themes into the movies, that you can't go just wantonly destroying things in the efforts to save people. Sure, obviously you want to save people, but you got to be careful about how you go about doing it.
Yeah, and you look at the Hulk too. I mean, maybe a Hulk might be a good example of a mindless being going to go kill something else. But if in the process they kill thousands of people, do you really still consider them a hero or not? And the answer is probably no, because of the collateral damage that they cause.
I think it comes down to also essentially whether they're hero or villain is, do you agree with their premise? Like, would I agree with the Hulk killing 100 people because he's running at Ultron to smash him? Probably, because it's the greater good there to take out Ultron before Ultron takes out 1,000,000 people, right? But if I didn't agree, if I agreed with Skynet when we get to him, then I wouldn't think the Hulk is the right path here.
So, yeah, I mean, is it worth the death of an innocent to save 1,000 lives?
Right.
Kind of situation, right?
Right, which is kind of great, and it's. I don't want to talk about the movie and skip past Baron Zemo, but Baron Zemo essentially is a sub-character that creates this conflict for Civil War between the main characters of the movie.
Yes. And
they split into teams, and they have these conflicts. So you're not having a lot of casualties that are collateral damage in this movie because you have superhero versus superheroes, right? And you've got people that are literally wanting to kill them. So one character we'll get to later, or a really popular one, the introduction of Chala. right, as Black Panther.
Yeah.
And his after Chaka, I think, is his father gets assassinated,
Right.
Basically by Baron Zemo because he convinced or blamed it on Winter Soldier. T'Challa's trying to kill him. T'Challa wants to kill, Winter Soldier here, and
There's
Captain
no
America.
justice there. It's revenge. At
Right,
that point,
right, and it's no different than what Baron Zemo's trying to do on the other side of things.
Yeah.
Is get that revenge, like you said. What's he able to accomplish? Because I would make the argument he's actually able to accomplish more than almost anybody on this list, with the exception of Thanos.
I'm glad you brought that up because I agree.
Oh, spoiler alert! He comes up later.
That's true.
Oh man, did you guys think we were going to cover him?
But yes, I think he is one of the more successful villains on this list because very clearly he does exactly what he was hoping to do. His goals are accomplished. The end of Civil War and that it's pretty a brutal fight between Iron Man, Bucky, and Cap at the end there. That scene's pretty intense, and it obviously leaves the entire Avengers fragmented, disbanded.
Yeah.
You've got War Machine, who's pretty critically injured at this point from the earlier fight.
Yep.
So he's definitely accomplishing everything that he was setting out to.
Yeah, and leading even up to where we're at in the timeline, they still aren't talking, right?
Yes.
Captain America, and if you haven't seen it by now, well, whatever. Captain America and Iron Man, they aren't on speaking terms.
No.
Right? They have not seen each other since the events of Civil War. So he has not only fractured the team, like you said, he's basically split them into two teams, which is why they are able to basically be essentially almost wiped out by Thanos later on when we talk about him, and why they're not as successful as they probably would have had they been united.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ironies too is that Iron Man is the cause of Ultron, right? Which causes the Civil War for the second episode of that, and then it leads to the Civil War where he is in favor of the government controlling them and telling them what to do, which is kind of ironic because Iron Man's the guy that goes off on a whim and does whatever he pleases. And now all of a sudden he's, all right, you tell me what to do. And if you've seen, especially Iron Man 2, between him and Justin Hammer in the court cases.
Oh, yeah.
He goes, it's my property.
Yeah.
You can't have it.
Yeah.
It's a huge difference in the mindset.
Yeah.
And development of the Iron Man character.
That too.
Tony Stark.
Hold on, to be fair,
Sure.
the Hulk also plays, what's his counterpart's name?
Bruce Banner?
Bruce Banner also plays a part in creation of Ultron, right? They together.
Yes, I believe it is a joint effort there.
What's his name? Jarvis, and they put Jarvis mix it into this technology to create Ultron.
Why you would think that Bruce Banner would be a good person to consult with on the Jarvis consultation is a terrible idea.
Yeah, no
he
Jekyll
created
and
his
Hyde.
own
right.
alter ego,
Yes.
which terrorizes through a city.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
So we talked about if he's successful. Let's talk about. Let's debate this, Joe. You'll get into this. Does he have a point? Does he have a point to the idea of a team of superheroes should not be allowed to run around without repercussions? And that comes to the point with why Captain America and Iron Man have this disagreement is government control of this team.
Right.
And that they go where the government sends them. They are responsible to what the government wants, which Captain America says no.
No.
And Iron Man says, look at what happened in Wachovia. That's why we need this type of oversight. Essentially, Baron Zemo basically kind of has a point that if they had the oversight, maybe this never happens. And so even though he's not trying to get them to be controlled by the government, he basically has maybe a broader point that this type of team left unchecked can have that collateral damage we've seen in both Avengers movies.
Yeah, absolutely. And go ahead, Nick. Jump on in.
I was just going to say, it's the debate whether you think the government is doing the best for the people that it's serving. Right? Do they not have ulterior motives? Sure they do.
I think it's great, too, that Cap is the opposition for this, right? Yeah.
Be fair here.
You said Captain
America.
Who? That's his favorite. Keep going.
Yeah. Oh, very true. Yeah. So Cap's my favorite Avenger. I should probably preface this entire conversation with that. Yes. But the fact that it is Cap who's leading the opposition, essentially, arguing against government control. They want, or rather, Captain America wants the autonomy to be able to act as is necessary, whenever is necessary, to go wherever is necessary, to do whatever is necessary to stop bad guys in whatever iteration that looks like.
Yeah.
So I just love the juxtaposition of that, because in the first Captain America movie, he is a soldier. He's doing what the government wants him to do. Fast forward to where we're at in Civil War, and now he's arguing for the autonomy of the Avengers to be able to do what they want without
Is that
government
not a
oversight.
typical theme of like big government versus small government,
Well,
state-run government?
Contrarily, though, Iron Man, who up to that point had been the guy that does whatever he wants, autonomous freedom,
Yeah.
has now been the one that says, look what happens on my side. When you have all this freedom, you make dumb decisions, which clearly they have. And he has, right?
But is he just doing that out of regret, and he just felt guilted into doing that with that altercation with the woman at the elevator?
I think he does.
It's an emotional reaction, but not like a clearly logical reaction too. Not to disagree that like that's a super unfortunate event, but for the greater good, is that the best decision? And it's the lesser of two evils when you do something like that.
Okay. So let's tie Baron Zemo up here. Let's not ask if he's a villain, but let's ask in comparison to Loki, is Baron Zemo a villain?
I would say yes.
Okay.
But
It's hard to say. I would say no from the limited viewpoint of Baron Zemo, to where he just has this like earthly responsibility of, you know what, the only people left to blame are the Avengers at this point, and they're the original cause of what happened to me, and I need to put an end to it.
Okay. Moving forward to a guy that actually became one of my favorites.
nice.
Vulture.
Yeah.
Vulture is the villain in the Spider-Man movie. Was it Spider-Man Homecoming, I think is the title.
Yep.
And he's played by Michael Keaton. And Nate, tell us more about who Vulture is. Or why Vulture becomes Vulture.
So the Vulture is like a demolition contractor at the point. And you first are introduced to him right after the events of Loki trying to take over the Earth. The first
Avengers War.
Avengers War.
It's the first Avengers movie where they come
Yeah,
together.
the first
and
Avengers
team up.
War. And he's got a huge contract with the city that he ends up winning. Puts in a huge investment for a lot of capital on. He mentions a lot of vehicles and equipment and things, and he's guaranteed this by the city. And come to find out that once he starts doing that, I'm going to say the national government, not to put a bad spotlight on there, but they need to start confiscating this alien technology. And he says, hold on a minute, I was guaranteed something here. I have a lot of money invested in this thing, and you're just taking it away from me with no compensation, and I have no way of paying for this. And it's essentially stolen from him.
Yeah, not just that. He says he buys trucks, he buys equipment, he hires a whole new staff of people who have families. Mm-hmm. So he's not just doing this for himself, he's doing this for the families also of the people he works with. And essentially, it's kind of funny because that guy makes that snide comment to him that he shouldn't have stretched himself out so thin. And he obviously gets angry and kind of loses it. And the idea was there's this truck full of equipment or technology. He goes, well, I'm not moving it. And they just basically take it. And he becomes an arms dealer, right? He starts selling technology, weapons technology based on the alien technology that was left behind in the war.
Yeah, exactly.
He is a super freaky smart engineer, apparently.
It's not just him. I think his sidekick is the engineer, too.
Yeah,
he's got some good talent that works for him, for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe a plot hole there.
Let's do this.
Working for a demolition contractor, but...
I think of all the heroes, or not heroes, sorry, of all the villains, he's probably got the least...
or most grounded.
Right, he's the most grounded, but he has the least grandiose plan. Yeah. I don't even know if he has a goal.
His goal is to, I think, be a businessman and be able to provide for his family.
Yeah,
he's been put in a tough spot, and he's doing whatever necessary to try and get out of that so he can continue to provide for his family.
Yeah, I think his goal is essentially to make money.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even to make money selling weapons.
No.
This was not a person that was made out to be a villain from the get-go. This was a person that basically was forced into a villainous role selling a product
necessity.
out of necessity. Right. And not just his necessity, the necessity of his workers. He's not responsible for them. What's he accomplish?
Initially, he's able to accomplish quite a lot.
I think so, too.
He becomes very successful in becoming an arms dealer with this improved technological weaponry. And obviously, it's Spider-Man who's able to come in and stop him.
Sure.
But up until that point, he's able to accomplish everything he wants to. If memory serves correctly as well, he's got a really nice house. He's got a nice car. He's very clearly able to provide for his family, which I think is his ultimate goal, is just to be able to be there for his family. So
I think the biggest theme that you can follow throughout a lot of these different villains is that I'm going to screw this up, but all roads to hell are paved with good intentions.
Yep.
Right? So all he wants to do is provide for his family, right? But in the process, he ends up developing alien technology into weaponry that he then sells to people who have illicit means of using them.
It's simply like robbing a bank, right? I mean,
Yeah.
robbing ATM, robbing banks is really what they're. He's just selling to low-level criminals.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and that's the part that makes him the villain is, I don't know. You can go into the debate of like nuclear weapon development about is that a good thing or a bad thing? Does it actually?
It's a good thing.
It's nuclear development is a good thing. Okay.
It's a good thing.
Okay. Topic for another day. Probably not on this podcast.
It's a good thing.
But he had the best of intentions when he started, and it kind of gets convoluted in the process.
Okay.
Yeah, very clearly what he's doing is not only illegal, but highly dangerous, of course. So his means to his end is certainly not something that's a good thing to be doing. But I think his intentions for doing it are something that are very relatable.
How about this? Does he make any mistakes? Can you guys think of any mistakes he makes? And I don't even know if we did mistakes for Baron Zemo, but...
Why does he develop it into weapons versus some other form of technology, right? Because, okay, so again, building up like nuclear weapons for the same thing there. Like, why don't we turn that into a nuclear power plant that powers a ton of energy?
The reason why I will take this. The reason why I think he's developing this weaponry is he's not supposed to have this technology in the first place. Okay, so he just possession
forces him to become a black market.
Well, yeah,
dealer?
just possession of it alone would be illegal. Therefore, he's keeping it illegal by selling it. If he just created something that would be beneficial to people, the government would take it. So if
the government created laws to tax it, and
right.
then we'd be good to go.
Right. So, but the idea is he doesn't want to lose this moneymaker, and this is what he has to make money. Therefore, he needs to keep it a secret. So he builds weapons because if he's going to be an arms dealer, he has to keep it a secret anyways. So I don't think that he can do any other thing with it besides weaponize it. Personally,
yeah.
I think he has to keep it on the black market or he loses out.
I agree. Regardless of what he did with it, now, yes, obviously creating weaponry creates direct conflict, but even if he were to create some kind of advanced technological power source out of it, something that's not directly harmful, I agree with you, Garrett. The government would swoop in if it caught wind of that, so he'd still be selling that illegally. If he did choose to create a power source with it, yeah, sure, it's not harmful, so maybe that would have probably been the better route to take, but he'd still have to be selling it illegally, I believe, to do so.
That's a fantastic point. And now that I relook at that, like, you can't create a power source and like pump it into the electrical grid and say, oh, I'm a legitimate power provider.
I'm a legitimate businessman.
Yeah. I mean, how regulated are like electrical or energy providers?
Sure.
Yeah, because they have their hands in that. So
yeah. How about this for a mistake? His biggest mistake is he simply just didn't stop.
That's a good one.
I mean, this is a guy. This is a guy.
Right?
This is a guy that probably, if he just had stopped now, he's already got the family. He's got the nice house. He's probably got money. He's probably got more money than he can spend. If he would have just stopped and let somebody else start selling this stuff on his behalf, he's probably not coming into conflict with anybody. He's probably just walking away.
That's true. Yeah, if he had done this to a point where he could kind of get on his feet and then do something legal in order to continue to make money, I would agree with you.
I think he could easily have taken the money from this and turned it into another construction job.
Yeah, he could have invested it somehow.
Right.
Yeah.
And bought new trucks and people again and went and hauled stuff off.
I think you get that taste of power and that taste of wealth, and you can't back down from it.
Or maybe this taste of, the government told me what I'm doing once, the government's not telling me what I'm doing again.
That's true too. He probably is kind of acting spitefully at
Yeah,
this
he's
point.
probably
too.
not voted in the next election,
Yeah.
right? He's
Yeah.
he's probably pretty anti-government at this point. Does he have a point, though? I mean, he's the everyday average American at the time that this happens. He's trying to do right. He's hiring people. He's got a small business going on in terms of that. And all of a sudden, big bad government, or really big bad, probably corporate government, essentially, because it's probably, I think, implied that Stark Industries has evolved in this because they kind of do that huge shot of Stark Industries as it's being rebuilt at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, they do
It
a
kinda-
fantastic shot.
kinda
They pan down.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's kind of not only because Stark Industries is a type of business that would get a government contract, so it's probably thinking that not only is the government involved, big corporate interests are involved, and he's getting squeezed
Yeah,
here.
the big gets bigger and the small gets smaller.
Right.
Yep.
And so, now, does he have a point that he should sell arms because of this? No.
No.
But he has a reason to be angry. We just probably all agree he just needs to channel it in other directions.
Yeah, exactly. But that initial reason behind him being very angry, finding a way to continue to make money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can understand probably where he's coming from.
I've got to applaud that entrepreneurial spirit that built America.
But wait, there's more.
If you buy two now
Yeah.
for $19.99,
Okay. So, is the Vulture a villain? Like,
Yeah.
do you see him as a villain?
I would still say he is. And not to jump ahead if you wanted to touch on the redemption side of things in a little bit here, but he's very much a villain, but he's one of the more redeemable villains I think we have on this list because of his reasons, or at least his initial reasons for doing this.
Yeah.
One of the common themes I would say in Spider-Man movies as well, and I know we're sticking to MCU right now, but even taking a step back, it's really Spider-Man's ability to find good in others. It's Spider-Man's ability to find what's good in these villains. Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Vulture, in this particular movie especially, of course. He even tries to do that with Venom a lot of the time, and in other stories in the comics and other movies.
Yeah.
So I think it's great at the end, of course, where Peter saves Toomes at the battle they have there.
Yeah.
At the very end. So he wants to stop, obviously, bad guys. Spider-Man wants to stop bad guys, but he also tries to bring out the best in them at the same time.
I could be wrong, and I haven't seen the Spider-Man Homecoming in a while. Does he start dating Keaton's daughter in that movie?
It does.
Okay, that's what I thought because
and that's where they meet
Yes,
for the first time. Is
Yes.
when he's about to take her to the homecoming.
That's right. Okay, I had that in the back of my head. I didn't know if I was thinking
and
of it.
Keaton's
as-
about to
Scene
drive
in
them
the
to the
car.
dance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that
and,
scene in the
and,
car
and then they
is
start
great.
knowing that.
Talk about
they
an
are-
awkward conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super
Yeah,
awkward.
of course. Okay, anything else that tied up on a loose end for Vulture?
I don't think so. Let's
think
move
so.
on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's keep moving.
Next villain up is Ultron. And Ultron is a machine that is basically a combination of Jarvis and another type of alien AI. I think they find the
Is it the Tesseract?
it's a Tesseract.
Did
Yes.
they mix?
Yeah.
They intermix?
Yep. And they kind of bring them together for this artificial intelligence that basically is way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
He is the villain in the Avengers: Age of Ultron, and he is played by or voiced by James Spader.
Yes.
From The Blacklist or The Office.
Couldn't have cast a better individual.
Yeah.
Great voice.
Oh,
Good voice.
A great casting pick for sure.
So, I think this one's probably the most obvious up to the point we've done. Is he a villain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so.
What's his goal then?
His goal, if memory serves me correctly, is to take over the world. He wants to exterminate humanity.
Why?
I think it has to do a little bit with him being the weaker option, if memory serves me.
Yeah, is it
Like
more
the
of a
superiority
natural
of
selection
machines
at this
kind of
point
thing.
to where humans have outlived their usefulness?
Well-
They've created a better species.
Yeah, and doesn't he twist it too? Because his programming is supposed to be to defend humanity, if memory serves me correctly. And then that
It's
is
more
through
so just
his...
to kill the Avengers themselves, and he's willing to sacrifice humans in the process.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely willing to sacrifice humans in the process to do that.
And I think there's a theme of escalation. We talked about this in like our Dark Knight series about armor piercing, wearing body armor and then armor piercing bullets. But when you have something as powerful as the Avengers as a group, you need something to counteract that and improve upon that. And Ultron was that at point in time.
Yeah, and he also had, I think it was Scarlet Witch was with him at the time, who she has the redeeming qualities, and then I don't know the name of her brother. Quicksilver, yeah. So I kind of want to deep dive into this idea of this artificial intelligence. So I hope you're here for this.
Oh, I'm so here for this. Let's do it.
How come, and we'll just use Ultron as the example,
sure,
that artificial intelligence, we always have this fear because movies make us have this fear, and I do believe this fear, so it's
yeah,
rational.
Me too.
The idea that not only are we going to be wiped out by artificial intelligence, but that why is the artificial intelligence always deems humans as a threat?
Because we react on emotions, and it's not logical, I think, for the most part, which is what makes us human.
Yeah, I think by and large, a lot of what makes us human, to kind of piggyback off of that, is exactly what machines do find to be a weakness. So if we have granted autonomy to machines that are superior in many ways, at least in terms of their physical approach to things, the work they could do, their operating capacity, their ability to think and reason, and the logic behind it, taking all of those things into account and comparing it against people who are constantly just reacting on emotional levels, I think probably leads to that point where machines would believe themselves to be a superior choice to what humanity is.
Okay. I agree with you, Joe. I think that was a good point that you made. This artificial intelligence idea that, at least for Ultron, that Ultron was going to be superior to Jarvis, right? And the ironic part is Jarvis later gets separated and Jarvis becomes Vision.
Yep.
Who's arguably more superior than Ultron is, because
Vision's
it seems like Vision
powerful.
is probably the most powerful Avenger, really, maybe up till Doctor Strange.
He can hold Mjolnir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just picks it up.
Just hands it back off. That seems great.
Why, I guess, this idea of this technology being the ultimate destruction, I don't know, the symbolism of this ultimate technology being the ultimate destruction, or the idea that these ultimate people are the ultimate bit of destruction. I don't. You guys kind of get what I'm trying to say here.
I can relate it to the point I brought up earlier about nuclear technology. Is it used as a nuclear weapon, as a warhead, or is it for power? Right.
Okay.
So it depends on the hands that it's in, really.
Yeah, it's two sides of the same coin, right?
Just like humanity, what's their intention for that use?
Okay. What does he accomplish?
I would say Ultron doesn't ultimately succeed in what he's setting out to do. Whereas some of the other villains, while maybe some of them do, like Baron Zemo, some of them come even closer than what Ultron is able to do. He's able, I would say, in a roundabout way, to make the Avengers realize, of course, because of the events at Sokovia and the Sokovia Accords that follow, what he unintentionally is able to accomplish is make the Avengers realize they need to take a step back and analyze their own approach.
Got it.
Ultron, other than on its face, he's able to destroy a lot of things and he causes a lot of collateral damage. He does not really accomplish what his endgame is.
Got it.
I would say.
Which is kind of ironic because the only two movies that the people don't accomplish what they're trying to accomplish are the Avengers movies.
Yeah.
The non-Avengers movies, you can make the argument the villains are trying to accomplish, maybe not Vulture necessarily, but the Loki, Baron Zemo, maybe Vulture, like I said, if he just walked away, he would have accomplished it. That together the Avengers stop them from accomplishing, and that when they're not together, they really can't accomplish, or the villains are much more successor. I don't know.
I got a really stupid question, but why didn't Ultron just fly under the radar for the longest time until he became powerful enough that he knew he would overcome the Avengers? You know what I mean? Because he's he is the internet in some sense, right? So he's everywhere, to some degree.
Right? He's Skynet.
He's Skynet. that thought occurred to me too, and I think what's interesting is, for as much as Ultron thinks he's superior, I think it's his humanity.
Oh.
Yeah, hubris too. Yeah, it's the human portion of him that kind of leads to his downfall. Because you're right, there's other logical things. We talked about machines, in theory, being logical, operating more logically than a human would. But he makes some mistakes, and I think it's his drive to prove how powerful he is, to maybe throw his existence in Tony Stark's face in a way as well. And those are all very emotional things to do.
That kind of goes to, who is it? David and Prometheus, the kill your creator, right? The idea that Ultron would think of Tony Stark as a human being who will wither and die, and that he, as Ultron, is not going to have that.
He's his successor.
Right,
Yeah.
and arguably his better.
Yeah.
Right? That he's a better version of Tony Stark's mind, and that he would essentially replace Tony Stark and surpass him.
Yeah. And there's the theme there, too, of course, where he's... he references Pinocchio. There are no strings on me.
Right.
And that's a common theme throughout as well. So I think, in a way, he's proving that. He's constantly proving that. He's saying, you don't actually control what I do.
Right.
And he's obviously making that his point, so...
I really enjoy the thought of humans as a race being able to predict their future. Because if you think of any other animal on Earth, yes, they have instinct onto what might happen if this happens, like cause and effect sort of things, but nowhere near to the level that we actually have that as human beings and the way that our minds have developed. And to think that, like, we can, again, the hubris that we can create something that's completely artificial that will think better that we can, I find that hard to believe in some aspects in a creativity level, in purely a creativity level. But another good example is that Elon Musk has a company that is developing AI too, which he is a huge proponent of very cautiously pursuing AI, right?
So glad you're bringing this
And yet
up.
his company brought up and developed a technology that I think is in Dota 2, and it is competing in that level to where it will compete against pro teams, and it beats them soundly.
Well, Elon
Which is
Musk...
scary because there's so many factors that are involved.
If you're not aware, Elon Musk has a ongoing feud with one Mark Zuckerberg over artificial intelligence, and the fact that the United States, not really the United States, but really the world, needs to put laws in place now to counteract artificial intelligence, then wait for it. That we need to be proactive, not reactive, since laws are obviously generally reactively put in place to hinder something.
Yeah.
And between Mark Zuckerberg, who thinks that Elon Musk is overblown, and Elon Musk, who's way smarter than Mark Zuckerberg, it's an interesting debate. It's not really a debate. Elon Musk is absolutely 100% correct.
Yeah. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Right.
And to not be proactive about this with our constant obsession about this exact thing.
Yes.
I mean, boggles the mind that we aren't trying to be more proactive about something like that.
Maybe the iRobot, the 3 laws type situation where they're overruled at some point.
Definitely.
It's going to happen.
The kind of the funny part, just to end the cap on Ultron, but maybe just to end the cap on the artificial intelligence, because that's essentially what he is. The idea that we have every notion to believe artificial intelligence will kill us as people, but what we want to do more than anything is build it.
Yeah. Let's get our smart homes.
That we're trying to build this.
How can I automate everything?
Yes. How can I make this think for itself?
Without any repercussions to my personal safety whatsoever.
Well, we'll see. I don't believe in the zombie apocalypse. I believe in
I
believe in the Terminators. So
your fridge is gonna kill you one day.
Right.
Probably.
I don't know.
Probably. But that's because of what I put in it, though. Okay, let's move on to the last two big names here. The first one here is Killmonger.
Mm-hmm.
Couple reasons why. Well, not a couple reasons. Killmonger absolutely deserves to be on this list. He's obviously very in vogue right now. He almost won an Oscar recently. Joe, you just saw Black Panther for the first time.
I'd never seen it.
So before we jump into Killmonger, provide us with your thoughts on Black Panther as a whole.
Overall, I thought it was awesome. And I'm sad it took me this long to finally watch it. But I'm finally catching up on all my MCU back catalog, so to speak.
Nice.
But yeah, I thought it was great. The character of T'Challa, I thought was awesome. Chadwick Boseman, I believe you, had mentioned, plays T'Challa, of course. I thought he was very charismatic. Really loved his character. Killmonger as well. He'd been really hyped, so I hadn't seen this movie yet. So I was going into it with this hype around Killmonger. And I thought he was certainly a great villain. Absolutely a good kind of darker image of what T'Challa is trying to accomplish.
Got it.
And that kind of, how they're going about doing that goal very differently.
Yep.
But and Killmonger's challenge to T'Challa about essentially hiding Wakanda and the technology that they have available, and he addresses his concerns with that, of course, as well. But overall, I thought it was a great movie. I really enjoyed it.
Wakanda forever, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. So Killmonger, I think, so far of the villains we have, I think he might have the most nuance. Okay? It's going to probably come down to him and Thanos, who, spoiler alert, is our next guy. We'll come back to this question. What is Killmonger's goal? Or actually this, before we do it, who is Killmonger? Explain who Killmonger is, Joe.
Sure, yeah, well, Killmonger, prior to when he actually arrives back at Wakanda,
right.
You find out that at a very young age, his father was murdered, and it's actually, and I apologize, was it T'Chaka?
Chaka, yeah.
Yeah, Chaka, okay, T'Challa's father. So he actually essentially kills his own brother. This is Killmonger's father. Leads him to join the military, and you find out that he is basically the ultimate soldier.
Killing
this
machine.
Guy has been everywhere, done just about everything in a spec ops capacity.
Now,
go ahead.
To be fair, kills his father because his father was selling the technology from Wakanda for the same argument that Killmonger is going to want to distribute technology later.
Exactly.
Maybe
I probably summarized that confusingly.
That's okay. Maybe not as benevolently, but the idea was Killmonger's father, who is the brother of the king, so Chaka, he is living in New York City, not in Wakanda.
Right.
Okay. Oakland.
Oh, he's in Oakland.
He's in Oakland,
I'm sorry. He's in Oakland.
Yeah.
I apologize. He's in Oakland. I thought it was New York City.
In 1992, I think, is the timeline that they give.
Selling technology from Wakanda. They show up. Scramble happens. He accidentally essentially kills his brother.
Yeah.
Okay. Fast forward. Killmonger is a member of the CIA.
Yeah.
He is a killing machine. He's in every war. High body counts.
For sure.
Right. What's his goal?
His goal is really to arm the people to rise up against their oppressors.
Or to take what he considers his natural birthright.
Yeah, well, that is, that as well.
His argument is he should be king.
Yeah, by making himself king, he's going to enable all of his people with the ability to defend themselves.
Right. Mm-hmm. This is a way more nuanced Marvel movie. Right, the ideas of colonialism, the ideas of white supremacy, the ideas of black empowerment. These are very, very much ingrained in this film.
Isolationism.
Correct.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, world wars with the U.S.
Yep. Globalization as well, right?
Yeah.
Trying to distribute this technology. His goal essentially is a couple things. His goal is to obviously reclaim the throne,
right,
which he considers his birthright, which he does do in a fair way. He fights T'Challa in the normal combat without any power and beats him. And when Michael B. Jordan, who plays Killmonger, takes off that shirt and he just got those scars.
Oh yeah, all the scars
from all the bodies he's killed. I mean, it's impressive looking, right? He's definitely a menacing figure.
He even mentions when he takes off his shirt and ready to do this mano-a-mano duel that he killed his own people to get to this point to where he could become the king and empower the rest of his people. He had an end game in mind, and he was not willing to sacrifice anything.
No, right. And so let's go up to this goal first. So besides that goal, he has the other goal of basically arming his people, who he says have basically been essentially crushed by the systematic oppression of the world.
Yeah.
Right? And that's essentially black people throughout
due to Wakanda being isolationist.
Correct. The Wakanda has the technology and the military technology specifically to combat the rest of the world and basically to overrun it and unite his people. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll get back to that in a second. Killmonger kind of reminds me of The Lion King. I mean, it really draws comparisons to The Lion King.
Yeah.
Okay? Kind of reminds me of Scar in a way, right? Wanting his natural place to be king. But Killmonger reminds me of the guy who, he's been training, he's in shape, he's not, almost like T'Challa, since becoming king, has been resting on his laurels. Is not as sharp maybe as he used to be. He's a little bit slower. He's kind of the Apollo Creed where this is the Russian, right? Like, just not as top performance as he used to be. And Killmonger, stops him.
The nature versus nurture portion
Right.
of that, where he has the hunger way more than... They don't really allude to any of the training that T'Challa has at all.
No, but he's. I mean,
doesn't
he's
do him justice.
gifted, right?
Yeah,
but let's be
sure.
fair. He's also very gifted because of his suit and the power that he gets, right? It's not to say that when you take away that power, Killmonger essentially is a better fighter. He's a better warrior than T'Challa is. That's not debatable.
Which is why he gets challenged in the original time that he tries to become king by the Mountain Clan. I forget their name.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't remember I don't know. I'm not going to make their noises either. They bark the whole time.
They have a cool theme though. The gorilla.
Yeah.
face mask.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
That was really cool.
Okay, so we acknowledge his goal, and he accomplishes that, right? He defeats T'Challa.
Yeah.
He becomes king of Wakanda. Okay. Anything else that he accomplishes before we go to? I want to touch on his second goal later. Anything else
On the
he
second goal
accomplishes
later?
Yeah, I want to get to the second goal in a little bit.
I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting how the country just accepts him based on there's a lot of controversy between T'Challa's love interest in the story about how she's a spy and she just leaves,
Yep.
and to where the female general says, "I provide for my country and I support my country. He is the king of my country, and I have to stay here and provide my position."
Okay. What mistakes does he make? Okay, before we get to that, save that. Sorry. Let's go to his second goal. His second goal is to basically arm his people throughout the world and to fight basically the colonial oppression, right? Or colonialism. He wants to basically kill everybody. Everybody that's not black. Let's be fair. Like, controversial or not, he's trying to essentially kill everybody who's not a black person in the world. Or he's trying to kill black people too. We're not fully sure what he's trying to kill. We just know he's trying to basically fight back at oppressors.
And oppressors, yeah.
Who he basically says is systematic oppression.
And
governments.
They have that conversation in the throne room as well, where, and I apologize, I don't remember his name, but he's very clearly one of T'Challa's friends. Is it even his brother or brother-in-law?
His best friend.
His best friend?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but he talks about he'd rather
It's
be
the
the
Border
conqueror.
Patrol, the blue themed people.
Yeah, he'd rather be the conqueror than the conquered, essentially. So there's that whole kind of dynamic at play.
Well, he also makes that bold claim that he didn't. His ancestors jumped off the ships and died en route to being slaves, right? That he wants to fight back like his ancestors did, who jumped off the boats in basically the Middle Passage. What mistakes does he make?
Well, an easy one. He assumes that T'Challa is dead.
How about he lets T'Challa live?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. He throws him over the side without actually just killing him, where he can confirm that he's dead. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
I think you find in most monarchies they essentially have a genocide and wipe out the entire family hierarchy.
Yes.
That was left behind.
Well,
to be fair, superseded.
To be fair, the family does kind of run away.
They do.
They go into hiding.
That's true.
But essentially, you have to basically chop off the head of loyalists, right? And he doesn't really do that.
He doesn't do it with the general and essentially the king's bodyguards there, because Nate, you mentioned where she references that she's loyal to the king and her country, but very clearly toward the end, where they obviously end up fighting Killmonger once they find out T'Challa's alive.
Yeah.
So,
how do you think he could have been more successful? Because I think what would have been interesting is he could have united the smaller factions. He obviously gets, I don't know the name of the blue group either, but the war elephants, right? Or rhinoceros.
right. Yep, that's right.
But why couldn't he go and unite the other people that T'Challa essentially gets saved by? And unite these groups and then challenge from within. He could have basically allied the oppressed smaller regimes of the Wakanda people against basically the Wakanda kingdom.
Yeah, I think maybe there's something to be said for diplomacy in this takeover, and he has none of it. Right. He's very much coming in, he's proving he's a superior fighter, he's taking over the throne, and then he's willing to do whatever is necessary to accomplish his other goal of arming the oppressed. So I think even trying to smooth over that transition would have done him a lot of favors to winning people to his side of the argument.
Yeah, and he has an argument that basically his people are being oppressed because Wakanda's isolationism, right? And that Wakanda has the technology to save people, not just kill people that are oppressing, but to save people who are oppressed. And the argument is by T'Challa and the Wakanda people staying hidden, He's watching people die. He's watching people suffer. He grew up in Oakland where people were suffering, right? Remember, it's kind of interesting because when he's able to go to the plane of existence or whatever it is to see the other people, he doesn't go see other kings. He sees his father.
That's right.
And his father is basically talking to him about stuff and the idea that, like I said, his father, you can make the argument, isn't bad. Like, he's trying to arguably help people. He's being benevolent with that technology. Sure, is he maybe falling into other people's hands? Yeah, probably. But to him, he thinks he's helping his people.
Well, it's almost to tie it back to the Vulture a little bit.
Right.
I would almost associate Killmonger's father's goals being aligned. I mean, he's not an arms dealer.
Right.
Obviously, there's a distinction there. He's
Right.
got a very distinct goal in helping the oppressed still.
Correct.
But in terms of his, yeah. It's a little... Oh, go ahead, Nate.
You think about if he wins overall, history is written an entirely different way, and we receive this in an entirely different way, just like real life.
Well,
right?
if he wins, the Avengers end up invading Wakanda. That's going to happen. Like, the alternate reality to this would be he wins, they invade. Now, let me ask you this, and let me throw this curveball at you. There's a theory out there, okay? There's a theory out there that Killmonger... that this has been a CIA ploy to get to the vibranium in Wakanda. That Martin Freeman's character, who works for the CIA, hired Killmonger, and this was a mission to get Killmonger into Wakanda to get Wakanda's vibranium.
It's pretty deep.
That's
pretty layered.
I think it was successful.
Yeah.
I believe this conspiracy theory. I believe this conspiracy theory was successful. No, I'm just joking. But that was kind of an interesting idea that the colonialism of the CIA, basically the imperialism, I should call it, not colonialism necessarily.
Was to get him shot in the spine.
Well, nobody got, but he gets there too, right? I mean, by putting him in that position.
Yeah.
Do you guys think Killmonger has a point? Like, who do you side with?
Absolutely.
Do you side with T'Challa or Killmonger?
I side with T'Challa.
I side with Killmonger with this reason. Why? By the time it changes T'Challa's reasoning to not be an isolationist, right? He realizes that he has to become a globalized nation within the world itself, right? So it changes his way of thinking that he has to provide this technology and this way of saving individuals and what they can bring to the table for the entire world to make it better overall.
Joe?
I still definitely agree with T'Challa's approach by the end. Yes, also a distinction I need to make. I don't think he should remain isolationist in terms of how Wakanda is at the beginning of the movie. So when I say that I agree with T'Challa, it's at the end. But of course, T'Challa, to your point, Nate, is acting the way he's acting because of the events with Killmonger. So if Killmonger's removed from that entire picture, what do you guys think T'Challa would have done? Do you think he would have arrived at the same conclusion where he would eventually help other people, or do you think they would have remained isolationist?
I don't think they would have ever gotten a Starbucks like the General wanted.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Joe. I think if Killmonger doesn't come around, I don't think that they open up Wakanda. I think that they're very fearful of the outside, essentially of people getting their technology or exploiting it, right?
Right.
And I think that because of Killmonger, I think Killmonger serves two things. I think Killmonger is showing him that threats outside are still going to get in, but also that you can't hide, that you have to be out there to some degree, right? That like you can try to be an isolationist, but threats will still come in. So you might as well put yourself out there then and try to do the best you can to combat these threats from the outside. To be fair, though, Killmonger's not really an external threat. He's a threat from within that is an external threat. He is a Wakandan. He is... If he wasn't king of Wakanda, or if he didn't have the bloodline, he'd never been there. Right? This killer CIA guy wouldn't have known about vibranium, wouldn't have known of, when he's in the museum, right?
Right,
Wouldn't have known about Wakanda. So the idea is essentially it stems from him being a Scar type placement from Lion King that wants the throne. It just happens to be that I'll use this other thing. I want the throne. That's his goal. I'll use this other thing saying Wakanda is being selfish as my other end goal, right? To get rid of everything else.
Mm-hmm. And he uses that, to your point, he certainly uses that as his argument. So obviously he challenges T'Challa for the actual right to be king, but that's by and large what he's telling everyone that needs to be done to try and gain support.
It reminds me of that Lion King song, I can't wait to be king.
It's so lighthearted.
just like this movie. Yeah. Okay.
One of the things I'd just jump back to, is we entirely forget the very beginning of the movie where was T'Challa's dad, T'Chaka, justified in killing his own brother at that point?
That was a skirmish, so I think there was an issue that he reactively kills him.
Okay, so that's one point, right? And then the second point following that is, were they okay in covering up that situation? Or should they have just been honest from the forefront? You know, I don't know what kind of publicity there is.
T'Challa gets mad at his dad. T'Challa goes to the plane of existence, whatever it is, and says, you left that child there.
Yeah.
To be fair, Killmonger grows up in the viewpoint that he does because he's left in Oakland.
Yeah, so not only is this caused by T'Chaka killing his dad, Killmonger's dad, but also because he leaves him there. So there's two different mistakes there that are made.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if he grew up in Wakanda. Do we have a Loki Thor situation here?
Ooh, that's interesting. I think it would have been much closer to that. Yes.
Okay.
And I agree that obviously I think that Chaka could have made a much better choice. I get that it was reactionary, but I still think that encounter could have gone differently. And then once the encounter did go the way that it did, don't just leave Killmonger there. I agree. That was a horrible choice. I think we would definitely have more of a Loki Thor situation.
Do you think Killmonger could have been redeemed?
Ooh, not at that point.
Like, I know there's rumors out there that they do a Black Panther 2, people want him brought back somehow because they think that he could have been like a redeemable character that could side with T'Challa, that somehow they could bring him back to life. Or maybe they somehow after the credits they took him to the infirmary and made him better anyways.
You'd have to make such a horrible enemy beyond what Killmonger already is to make him look like a good guy in that respect. Or an anti-villain even at that point.
Yeah, but like I said, you can make the argument that he's got the most nuance, that there are people that would argue that he is correct. You argued earlier, Nate, he was right.
Kind of.
Is there?
I mean, the point that it brought a new viewpoint onto T'Challa.
I think an interesting way to look at this, and I have to be honest with myself too, is I was all for the fact that Loki's redeemable. Loki does awful things.
Loki's body count is higher than Killmonger's.
Yes, and
not maybe scar-wise personally.
Well,
but bringing an army into the city that is destroying killing countless
Manhattan,
people.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think, maybe given enough time, depending on how the entire CIA backstory of that is fleshed out a little bit more, there's the potential there. Yeah. My initial reaction was to say, no, he can't be redeemed. But the more I think about it,
of his 100+ kill count, like how many of those were justified?
Yeah, he's a plant. This was to get the vibranium all along. U.S. government. Okay. So, not redeemable, we don't think.
It'd be very tough to
I'd say I'd vote no.
Redeemable character.
I would vote no.
Yeah, if I had to give a definitive answer right now, I would say no as well.
Okay. Let's finish up then with I shouldn't say finish up because we got a special guest appearance at the end. Let's go to the next bad boy. Thanos. He's very in vogue right now. He's got
so hot.
He's got an upcoming film. He's also the most successful of the villains.
How so?
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay. I see what you did there.
Yeah, you couldn't see it, but I snapped. Just in case you couldn't hear it. Joe, tell us who Thanos is.
Thanos, gosh, the big bad of the entire universe. So Thanos' end goal is that he wants to wipe out half of all life, not on one world, not on two worlds, half of all life in the universe. He thinks that this needs to happen to essentially give everyone a restart of sorts, that we have exhausted resources across all worlds, that we have essentially outgrown our own capacity, not just humanity, but the universe in all of its various forms. So his end game with everything, assemble the Infinity Gauntlet, along with all the Infinity Stones, make the snap, and wipe out half of all life in the universe.
Now, why does he want to do this? What's driving him?
He has had the same situation happen to him on his homeworld of Titan, to where his people neglected to, I think, respond to his ability to predict what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And again, at that point in time, he didn't have the power, I assume.
No, he had a lottery system in mind. They would randomly select half the people, rich, poor, didn't matter.
Yeah, but no one bought into that idea.
Right.
They didn't have the fortitude or the willpower to do this unspeakable act.
Right. Okay. So, sum that up. We have a Titan, essentially, who wants to basically take out half the universe. Let's start with his successes. His successes... He wiped out half the universe.
Yes.
Let's start with that. He is the most successful person on this list. He
begrudgingly
does
it.
We'll get to that in a second. So let's start with maybe not his accomplishments because we know he succeeds. How about any mistakes that he makes?
It's kind of hard with Thanos, really.
No, you're right, because all the mistakes were made on the Avengers.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's got a plan. He sticks to it. He accomplishes what he sets out to do.
Yeah.
Guys, help me out here. What mistakes does he... Obviously, aside from the fact that what he's doing is awful, but in terms of his end goal, those aren't mistakes to him.
No. How about this? Maybe things he didn't plan on. Because I would say the killing of Gamora, I think, bothered him more than he thought it would.
I agree. It certainly bothered him more than perhaps he thought it would, but I think he probably knew he had to do that.
Correct. He has to get that specific... What stone was it? The Soul Stone? Is that what they call it?
It was the Soul Stone.
The green one or whatever it is.
I don't know. I read that scene a little bit differently. Maybe it still impacts him harder than he thought, but I think the most tragic thing about that whole scene is that he does know exactly what needs to be done. He knows how hard doing that will be, and then he does it anyway.
Right. And he lost his family.
Yeah.
So he's a guy that thinks that he's going to try to prevent this tragedy from happening to other people by essentially taking out the other half of the people.
Yeah.
Now, this is obviously a greater or a more nuanced story to, say, resources and the lack of resources that are and the overpopulation and depletion of reserves and everything like that, right? This is a kind of a commentary on that, if you want to make that sound or make that claim.
Very relatable to The Matrix, I might just interject.
Because
they talk about the machines taking over the Earth and how they're trying to wipe out the humans because they consider them a cancer to the Earth because all they do, there's that very good speech from Agent Smith, talks about how they're just a cancer to the Earth and all they do is populate and consume. But I think it's very relatable to this subject here.
Very true. I did think of a couple mistakes.
Okay.
His encounter with the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
He uses, gosh, and forgive me, guys, is it the Time Stone? What? He manipulates, is it the reality? Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, the Reality Stone. So he obviously manipulates the Guardians, and they kind of, fall apart in different ways, but they're not actually dying in that scene. Why doesn't he kill them in that scene? Obviously, he needs Gamora, because I don't think he's got the Soul Stone at this point.
Right.
My only explanation of that is that maybe he's reluctantly... The only reason he kills is for his end game. And if he can avoid that, and now he has the power to avoid actually killing someone by choice, that he's going to just leave that up to when he finally gets all of the Infinity Stones and he can snap his finger and he can be completely unjudgmental and just, wipe out half the Earth without picking person by person.
That's a great point.
That's true. He does ask for the stones, and if they don't give it, then he essentially goes to war then. Although we do see that they did massacre everybody on Ragnarok's ship before we kind of see him essentially kill everybody around Ragnarok.
But I don't know. It's hard to tell because it's like a means to an end to him. So, it's hard to tell.
I'll disagree with you. I do think he kills people because he killed a lot of the dwarves on the smelting moon rock planet thing, right?
Okay.
Peter Dinklage's people. He said they killed all of them but him.
Yeah.
So then he basically burned off his hands.
Okay. Yeah.
He also wipes out Gamora's planet basically when he adopts her as a baby or a child. Maybe lines them all up and shoots them all, and like he turns her face and gives her the knife, right? He's also basically killing Gamora's sister, and he's taking her apart.
Nebula.
In torture. So he does some pretty heinous things. I don't know. The ultimate question is, does he have a point?
I think that's like... I think of like parents who drive their kids to be like pro athletes from like the age of 6 months, and they drive them and they say, you're going to be the best athlete ever. But they don't understand, like, not everyone is genetically built, or maybe they don't have the motivation to become that. And they end up looking like horrible, horrible parents in the process.
Yeah.
That you're driving a child to do something that they don't really want. But that serves his end game in the process too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely serves his end game in the process, and by doing everything that he does. Does he have a point in terms of consumption and the lack of resources and overexpansion and various arguments? Yeah, he's got a point there. Is his end game by any means acceptable? No, not in the slightest.
Right. I think you're assuming like the future already.
Yeah.
Because what if in this period of time that we come to this culmination of, we're using up all of our resources, but maybe there's a technology out there where we can double our crop production or something, And he's removing the inevitable from the situation and just assuming that this is how it will continue forever, and he's stopping the situation right there.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting too because he seems to be the one person that kind of exists with the power to do this, okay? And with the mindset that he is correct. That's the thing. He thinks he's correct.
Oh, yeah, he's a true believer in what he's
doing.
He's
a true believer with the power to accomplish it almost essentially on his own, right? I know he has an army at the end, and he's got those sidekicks, a couple of them. But ultimately, he could have done this on his own. He essentially does it on his own.
Yeah.
Once he walks through at the end to collect Vision Stone, he's already done it on his own. Nobody else brought in a stone for him the rest of the time. He collected all the other Infinity Gauntlet, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to say that he doesn't enjoy it even a little bit because you see the fight against him and the Hulk in that ship at the very beginning, and all the captains say like, "Oh, hold off, let him get warmed up or get his licks in."
Yeah,
and he just destroys the Hulk.
Yeah,
and in the end, what do they get? They get one little nick on his cheek after everything they've done this whole time.
Well, yeah, and I think that the mistakes of that particular movie are more on the Avengers and the ability that we've discussed. Like, I know it's way out there, the idea, who's the guy that hangs out with Doctor Strange?
Oh,
the Asian guy.
Yeah.
The idea that in the very beginning of the movie, he did one of those portals and cut the guy's arm off. But he somehow can't do a portal and cut the Infinity Gauntlet off the guy.
Right.
I mean, that's just a continuity error. Or the idea that they're all going to war at the end. They're all meeting up because they know Thanos is coming. The only guy that just doesn't show up is Thor. That Thor's just out doing whatever. That everybody goes on me, right? That Captain America, on my mark, come to find me. Thor's clearly the most powerful guy in the field of battle at that time, and he's the only person that's not coming. Come on.
Well, I think, too, one of the things about this movie is, between Doctor Strange, when he's got the Time Stone, and then when Thanos receives the Time Stone, you were mentioning earlier how that he's making assumptions about how things will go in the universe regarding overconsumption and things of that nature. You can't tell me that between Doc Strange with a Time Stone and Thanos, once he has the ability with the Time Stones, that they can't find some alternative means to this end. Like, that Thanos could not find an alternative means. He's got the power of time. He can find a beneficial solution that doesn't involve killing half the people.
I'm with you 100%. Why couldn't he go back in time?
Yeah.
And change that?
Do something.
I don't know. You could quote DC Comics in this respect and the Flashpoint paradox about how it screws up the future doing that, I guess. But
he's living the bachelor life and he hates standing in line. Right? That's essentially what he's going to boil down to. This one goes without being said. He is a villain to you, correct?
Oh, very much so.
Okay. I want to make one comment and comparison against the comics.
Okay,
versus the movies, right? Which I think is a huge distinction if I understand this correctly. And that is that in the comics, he does this to impress his love interest, which is the Mistress Death.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's like, hey, I'm going to show you how cool I am and kill half the universe. and he does that. Where in the movie version, he's doing it for an entirely different reason. It's to save life, in some sense.
Yeah, in his own
which is counterintuitive
way. Yeah,
but that's a huge difference where he's trying to impress a girl versus save the lives of millions and trillions and whatever.
Either way, he's living that bachelor life. Right? Okay. Again, you both said he's a villain. Now, he is not part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but he is part of Marvel, and he's one of my favorites. And I want to throw in this guy at the last second here, Magneto.
great villain.
Glad you said that, because let's debate that. If Magneto is a villain,
I'm leading you on a little.
Who is Magneto?
You're killing me. Eric
Lencher.
Eric Lencher?
Yep.
Eric Lencher, thank you. He is the brother or stepbrother of Professor Xavier, I think in the comics.
I don't know if he's related. Am I
wrong on that?
Yeah, Xavier's stepbrother, I think in the comics was actually who's the Juggernaut.
Juggernaut?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, so
Stand corrected.
Magneto grew up as a Jewish boy during the Holocaust and saw people obviously getting essentially wiped out. He grew up, he's a mutant. He befriended Charles Xavier. Their friendship basically split because Charles Xavier wants to save not just mutants, but obviously have a good relations with humans. Magneto says you can't have good relations with humans, we need to fight back. It's kind of a Martin Luther King versus a Malcolm X viewpoint on mutant-human relations.
It's also a classism thing to where he views himself as the hierarchy of that situation. He's evolved where the people underneath him that are trying to rule him aren't as evolved.
Right. His goal essentially, and he's kind of a nuanced character that goes in and out of being technically good and technically bad.
He does, yeah.
So he's got a lot of nuance to his character. For movie's sake, we're going to keep him in the X-Men movie universe here. And I know that I have a listener that will get mad that I'm not going to bring up Phoenix or whatever. We'll not bring up Phoenix, right? He just wants to mention he thinks Sansa's hot. So shout out to him. But let's just keep it to Magneto here. In the movies, his goal essentially is to wipe out or
the
really,
human race.
not only wipe them out, turn them into mutants.
Yeah.
His goal in the first movie, in the first Bryan Singer X-Men, was to turn them into mutants, right? And that was, he took, Rogue's power. He's going to light up that machine and basically, genetically alter them.
Yeah, and he's thinking he's upgrading the human race in the process.
Right. He doesn't really accomplish that.
No.
Okay, he doesn't really accomplish a lot of what he wants. He does, however, make the understanding and argument that there are humans that will hate mutants just because they're mutants, right? And they're different. He's not wrong. He's 100% right on that.
It's just because they're different.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Does he have a point, though? Let's debate his point. Let's just debate his villainy. Here's a guy that would argue that he can't take the patience that Xavier has because he's been in a concentration camp. He sees what the hatred of humans can do to a subset of people that they don't believe are equal. Right? He lived through the Holocaust. He thinks there will be another Holocaust, and that mutants will be the ones that are exterminated. Joe, you called him a villain earlier.
I did.
Break it down. Why is he a villain to you?
I think he's a villain in the same way that quite a few of the other villains we've touched on here tonight are. While some of their points might be valid, especially the ones you just mentioned, especially humanity's kind of constant repeat of being atrocious to one another, and why he thinks this will just happen again. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Like, we can understand that as a point that he's making, but he's going about it in a way that makes him villainous inherently, I would say. He's not doing this in a way that he's trying to broach a peaceful transition of some kind. He's doing it on his terms, in his way, at whatever cost.
Yeah, it's a means to an end for him. And I would say he's doing almost the exact same thing that happened to him as a child, to where he feels he is the superior class and he's oppressing a subset of his own humanoid class.
Well, I also think he thinks of it as the naivety, though, of the opposite. Say Charles Xavier. He would think it would be like Charles Xavier if Charles X was a Jew or Jewish person trying to basically befriend the Nazis. that's essentially what Magneto thinks of Charles Xavier, right? That he is essentially, the mouse trying to hang out with the cat. Okay?
It's the black and white versus the gray view of the world.
Right. He flutters in and out of being good and bad. In the movies, he flutters out of being good and bad, based on who the villain is, right? When Apocalypse shows up, he's good and bad, whatnot. He tries to live a good life. Family gets killed by humans, of course, accidentally, turns him bad again. I don't know. Let's throw Magneto into this list, and then tell me who has the best justification to be a villain.
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to go with Vulture.
Okay.
That's my pick.
Best justification, mate.
Best justification. Okay. I have a really hard time with this one. I'm going to say Ultron.
Okay.
I'm jumping out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to say, from a completely logical standpoint, I think you use up enough natural resources and you don't have any more. How can you depend on those resources and support an ever-growing population?
Okay.
And maybe that ties in more to a Thanos, where it's more like a biological type of thing, more so than AI taking over the world.
See, I'll say I'm going to throw this out as a tie.
Okay.
I'm going to tie Magneto and Baron Zemo.
Okay.
Because Baron Zemo, to me, is a guy that, as the only non-powerful person, he's essentially the victim, the real victim of the story of as a survivor of the Wachovia incident. His family gets killed. He's not necessarily taking out innocents. He's just trying to take down people that he deems as a villain. I don't want to say I understand where he's coming from. He's kind of when you think of war and you think of an invading force, you think of like casualties all of a sudden becoming, say, freedom fighters against an invading force or arguably perceived force, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of that freedom fighter mentality that he's arguably a terrorist that got built out of a collateral damage, right? Let's be fair.
Yeah.
Okay? He's an insurgent. Okay. And Magneto, because to Magneto, I say that he clearly sees the genocide take place as a child. He clearly sees that if they didn't stop it, there would be another genocide today. So I think that he acknowledges that he was going to be a victim from humans on both, or basically, humans on both standpoints. And I think that would make him like, hey, we have to fight. Like, we cannot peacefully live with these people. And I think he's kind of right. I don't think they could ever coexist because of the fear that humans would have with the superior power. Would you ever want to necessarily sit? I mean, they bring up great points in the X-Men movie. There's a person who can just walk into the White House. Nightcrawler just happens to go in the White House.
What a great scene that was.
Yeah,
back then.
it essentially
So
could
cool.
just take out the entire force of people, or Mystique does with the Richard Nixon, in the vault, right? The idea that these people are way more powerful than a nuclear weapon.
Bring up a new theme: natural selection. That is the new evolution of the human genome, or whatever. They are superior in every way. Yeah. Humans are just trying to survive, and they're trying to be proactive about it and genocidal in some sense.
I mean, humans they'd be afraid, and rightfully so. I don't know if you'd want to necessarily sit next to somebody who could spontaneously combust, become a human torch, become an ice, whatever it is, become a ice thing or a big rock thing. I don't know. I just feel like there would be a rightful, just because of the pure scope of power, humans would have a right to be fearful of that. So, okay. Anything else to add?
No.
I think we went longer than we thought we would.
I think we did.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, if you're still listening.
Thought this is going to be a shorty.
Yeah, if you're still listening, great. If you are listening still, go out to iTunes, give us a 5-star rating, please. That helps us out there catch more listeners. Subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family. Get us on Twitter at Alien and Cowboy. Get us on Gmail if you have questions at aliensandcowboys@gmail.com. Joe has a Facebook page up now for Aliens and Cowboys podcast. He's going to try to put photos up of the French Fencing Federation.
Exactly.
Feel free to leave comments.
Lightsaber dueling.
Yeah, leave comments, leave likes. If you want us to cover a specific topic, or if you want to debate something that we talked about, if you think we're wrong, which Nate's probably wrong most of the time.
I was going to say, tell me everything I did right.
Yeah, comment on it. Let us know. We'll be back next week with you guys. Until then, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.